If you are new here, welcome. This channel is where we share stories of family, sacrifice, and the unexpected turns that shape our lives. If these stories speak to you, please consider subscribing. It helps us keep bringing you tales that remind us of the fragile, beautiful ties that hold us together. Title: I posted bail for my brother and almost lost my daughter because of it. It was close to midnight when the phone rang, the kind of hour when every ring feels like bad news. The voice on the other end was weary but familiar, my brother's. From inside the walls of a county jail, he asked me for something only blood could make you ask. "Help me, sis, just this once more. Get me out of here." I stood there, clutching the receiver as if it might burn me. The silence in my kitchen stretched long, filled only by the hum of the refrigerator and the pounding of my own heart. You see, my brother had not called me in years, not since prison became more familiar to him than family gatherings. And yet, hearing him speak that night, I remembered a different boy, the one who once saved me. I was 17 and reckless, walking home late from a shift at the diner. A car swerved too close, drunk teenagers, headlights blinding. I remember the screech of brakes, the panic in my chest, and then my brother. He was only 15, but he threw himself forward, shoving me out of the way. He took the hit on his shoulder, rolling hard into the gravel. For weeks he walked with a limp, but he never once complained. When people asked, he just said, "I couldn't let anything happen to her." That memory has lived inside me like a promise. A life saved once cannot easily be repaid. And so, as his voice cracked through the line, older now, roughened by smoke and regret, I felt that promise tightening around me. He spoke of second chances, of getting back on his feet, of wanting to be Uncle Jack again to my daughter. But the truth was, everyone warned me. My pastor, my co-workers, even my own neighbors, they whispered the same thing: "Don't do it. Some people never change, you'll just be dragged down with him." I listened to their warnings. I nodded politely, but when I looked in the mirror, I didn't see their fears. I saw the boy who once kept me alive. The next morning, I drove to the courthouse. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead as I signed the paperwork that put my savings, my credit, and my reputation on the line. My hand trembled as I wrote my name, but I didn't stop. Because sometimes being a sister and being a mother means carrying a weight no one else understands. When I walked out with the receipt of his bail, I knew I had chosen more than my brother's freedom. I had chosen faith over fear, love over logic. And as I folded the papers into my purse, a shadow of unease whispered through me, like the first crack in glass, so small you almost don't see it. I had no idea then just how deep that crack would run. The morning after I signed the papers, the sky broke open with a gray rain. It fell steady, like the kind that makes the world quiet, as if the heavens themselves were holding their breath. I stood at the curb outside the detention center, my umbrella trembling in the wind, and waited for the doors to open. Then he walked out. My brother, Jack, squinted against the light as though the sun itself was too sharp for him. His hair was shorter than I remembered, streaked with more gray than a man his age should carry. He wore the same orange canvas pants, exchanged for a wrinkled shirt and jacket the jail had kept for him in storage. For a moment, we just stared at each other. Time had carved a canyon between us, but blood is a strange bridge. It lets you recognize someone even when they've become unrecognizable. "Thanks, sis," he said, his voice low, hoarse. He bent his head the way boys do when they don't want to show their shame. I wanted to scold him. I wanted to cry. Instead, I just nodded because there are moments in life where words only get in the way. Back at the house, my daughter Emma was waiting by the window. She had begged to skip school that day, not because she wanted to miss class, but because she wanted to be the first to see her uncle free. She was 16, full of fire and curiosity, and she had only the faintest memories of Jack before prison. To her, he was almost a myth, half cautionary tale, half secret hero. When he walked through the door, she leapt from the sofa. "Uncle Jack!" She cried and wrapped her arms around him as if she could erase the years apart with one embrace. I saw the way his eyes softened, the way his hardened jaw unclenched. For the first time in a long time, he looked like the boy I once knew. He laughed, though it came out more like a cough. "Look at you," he said, holding her at arm's length. "Last time I saw you, you couldn't even reach the counter. Now you're taller than your mom." Emma beamed, cheeks pink with pride. And in that moment, I thought maybe, just maybe, I had been right to believe in him. We sat down for dinner that evening, the three of us around the same wooden table where so many birthdays, arguments, and apologies had unfolded. Jack told stories, funny ones, softened versions of his time inside. He spoke about men who dreamed too big for the small cells that held them, about lessons learned the hard way. Emma leaned in, listening as though every word carried secret wisdom. I wanted to believe it too. But as I cleared the plates, I caught Jack's eyes following Emma in a way that was not unkind but calculating, measuring, as though he were already sketching her into some plan I couldn't see. I pushed the thought away. After all, shadows can look like monsters if you stare at them too long, and tonight I wanted light. Still, when I lay down to sleep, I couldn't shake the memory of the paper I had signed, the ink that bound me to his fate. My brother was free now, but so was the risk I had unleashed into my home. And as the rain tapped against the windows, I prayed silently. God, let me not regret this choice. For a little while, it felt almost normal. Jack was back in the house, Emma was happier than I had seen her in months, and the air at dinner was filled with laughter instead of silence. I caught myself humming while folding laundry, the way I used to when life was steadier. But normal has a way of slipping. Sometimes it slips quietly, like sand between your fingers. It began with small gifts. A pair of new sneakers for Emma, the kind with bright white soles and logos she had begged me for last Christmas. I knew I hadn't bought them, and I certainly hadn't given her the cash. When I asked, she said quickly, "Uncle Jack got them on sale." Then came the phone. A brand new smartphone, shinier than mine, placed into her eager hands. Jack winked at me across the table. "She needs to keep up with her friends, doesn't she? Don't worry, sis, I got a deal." I tried to smile, but the smile felt heavy. Deals don't fall from the sky. The next week, groceries showed up in the fridge without me buying them, and an envelope with $200 sat quietly in my purse. When I confronted Jack, he only shrugged. "I'm helping out. You've been helping me all these years. Time to return the favor." But favors from Jack were never free. One evening, as I washed the dishes, I heard low voices from the living room. Emma's laughter mixed with Jack's hushed tone like a secret shared. I wiped my hands and leaned closer to the doorway. "Don't forget the code," he was telling her. "You just texted exactly like this, 3 numbers, then the word drop. Simple, got it." My daughter's voice was soft, almost conspiratorial. "Got it." The clatter of a plate slipping from my soapy hands echoed louder than thunder. They looked up at me from the couch, their faces a little too innocent. "What are you two whispering about?" I asked, forcing my voice calm. "Just a game, Mom," Emma said quickly. Her cheeks flushed. Jack grinned, easy as ever, like the charming boy next door, but in my gut something twisted. I knew the sound of a lie when I heard one. That night I couldn't sleep. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, the shadows shifting in the corners of my room. Every gift, every unexplained dollar, every whisper replayed in my mind. Love had brought my brother home, but love alone wasn't going to protect my daughter. Somewhere deep inside, I felt it, the first stirrings of dread, the kind that doesn't shout but whispers, the kind that grows stronger the more you try to ignore it. And I began to wonder, had I opened the door for redemption or for ruin? The house had taken on a different rhythm since Jack returned. Emma's laughter carried louder, meals felt fuller, and for a while I told myself that maybe this was what family healing looked like. But late at night, when the world went quiet, I heard things that didn't fit the picture. One Thursday, I woke around midnight, thirsty, and padded down the hallway. As I passed Emma's room, I heard her voice, low and fast, as if reading from a script. 379. Drop. Confirm by sunrise. I froze. My daughter never stayed up this late, never spoke in such coded tones. Then, faintly, I caught another voice drifting from the other end of the hall. Jack's. I moved closer, heart pounding. He was on the phone, his tone sharp but controlled. She's good. Reliable. You'll get it in the morning. I didn't breathe until the floor creaked beneath me and I had to step back, retreating silently to the kitchen. I poured a glass of water I didn't need, my hands trembling so badly the glass tapped against the counter. The next morning, Emma stumbled into the kitchen with dark circles under her eyes. She kissed my cheek, too quick, and reached for the new phone Jack had given her. She guarded that device the way a soldier guards a rifle. I tried to speak gently. "Honey, were you up late last night, talking to your friends?" Her eyes darted, then landed on the floor. "Just homework, Mom. We had to share notes." I wanted to believe her, but the lie was clumsy, stitched together with nervous silence. Later that afternoon, when I emptied the laundry basket, a slip of paper fell from Jack's jeans pocket. On it, scribbled in his unmistakable scrawl, were numbers and words that meant nothing to me but everything to someone else. 217, West Lot. Drop confirmed. I stood there in the laundry room, the paper shaking between my fingers. The truth was no longer hiding, it was scratching at the door. And yet, when I confronted him over dinner, he smiled as though I'd asked about the weather. "Don't worry so much, sis. I've got things under control. Emma's just helping me with a little side hustle. Perfectly harmless." Perfectly harmless. The words curled in my stomach like smoke. That night, I lay awake again, listening for whispers. Every creak in the old house sounded like a warning. And in the silence, I understood. I wasn't just fighting to protect my daughter from strangers out there. I might have to protect her from the very man I had once trusted with my life. It was a Saturday night, the kind of night when most families gather for a movie, a bowl of popcorn, or just the simple comfort of being together. But in my house, the living room sat empty, the silence louder than any film. Emma wasn't in her room. Jack wasn't in his. I checked the clock just past 11 and felt that familiar prickle at the back of my neck. That mother's instinct, the one that whispers something isn't right. I slipped on my coat and stepped into the cool night air. The street was quiet, lined with houses that had long since gone to sleep. Then I saw them, two shadows at the end of the block, huddled near the old lot where streetlights flickered in and out. Emma, my Emma, standing beside her uncle, whispering fast, her hands clutching a backpack. I moved closer, keeping to the edges of the sidewalk, heart pounding so hard I was sure they'd hear me. Jack leaned in, his voice low but clear enough in the still air. "Good, you've got the timing down. Tomorrow you'll do it on your own. Just remember the code and don't hesitate. People pay more when it looks clean." Emma nodded, her face pale under the glow of the broken light. She looked younger than her 16 years, smaller somehow, as though the backpack weighed more than just clothes and zippers. My chest ached. This wasn't a game. This wasn't a harmless hustle. This was something darker, something that had slithered its way from Jack's world into my daughter's hands. I couldn't stay silent. "Emma," my voice cracked the night like a gunshot. Both of them turned, startled. "Mom?" Emma's voice trembled, the backpack slid to the ground. Jack stepped forward, hands raised in a mock display of innocence. "Sis, you're jumping to conclusions again. It's nothing serious, just a little side work." "Side work?" I snapped. "You're dragging my daughter into whatever scheme you've cooked up, and you want me to believe it's harmless." He frowned, his charm thinning at the edges. "She's learning. She's sharp. Don't you want her to have a way out of this small life?" Emma's eyes filled with tears. "Uncle Jack said I could help it, that I'd be good at it." The words sliced through me. My daughter, my only child, believing that crime could be her doorway to something better. I stepped between them, my body shaking but steady. Enough, this ends tonight. Emma, go inside now. She hesitated, torn between the man who dazzled her with gifts and the mother who had always been the steady hand. For a moment, I saw the war in her eyes. Finally, she bent down, grabbed the backpack, and ran past me toward the house. Jack watched her go, then turned back to me, his jaw tight. "You owe me, remember? You wouldn't even be standing here if it weren't for me." I swallowed hard, my throat burning. He was right. He had once saved me, but saving me then didn't give him the right to destroy her now. I stood tall in the cold night air, meeting his gaze without flinching. "And I won't let you use that debt to steal my daughter's future." His eyes narrowed, and for the first time I saw not my brother, but a man hardened by years of bad choices. The line had been drawn. That night, long after Emma had fallen asleep with swollen eyes and a trembling breath, I sat alone at the kitchen table. The house was quiet, but my mind would not rest. I poured myself a cup of coffee I didn't need, the steam curling into the darkness, and like smoke, memory returned. I was 17 again, standing in the middle of a 2-lane road, frozen in the glare of headlights. A car had skidded, brakes screaming, the world tilting into chaos. And then Jack, 15 years old, all elbows and bravado, shoving me with all the strength his small body had. I tumbled into the ditch, scraping my knees raw but alive. He wasn't so lucky. The car clipped his shoulder, sent him spinning across the pavement. I remember the sound, the sickening crack, and the sight of him lying still. At the hospital, the doctor said it was a miracle he hadn't broken his spine. For weeks he limped, for months he carried the scar. But when I tried to thank him, he only shrugged. "I couldn't let anything happen to you, sis." That moment etched itself into me like scripture. How could I ever forget it? How could I ever say no to him when he had once said no to death for my sake? I rubbed my temples, staring at the papers from the bail bond company, the ink of my signature dark against the white. That stroke of the pen had been more than a promise. It had been my confession of loyalty, my way of saying, "I remember, I owe you still." But now, seeing Emma's face tonight, pale and afraid, clutching that backpack as if it were her passport to some dangerous new life, I realized something terrible. My debt to my brother was colliding with my duty to my daughter. I wanted to believe Jack could change, that the boy who once saved me was still alive inside the man who stood in my driveway. But tonight, for the first time, I wondered if I had been clinging to a ghost. I walked to Emma's room. She was curled beneath the covers, phone gripped tight in her hand even in sleep. Her chest rose and fell in uneven rhythm, the way children breathe after crying too hard. I brushed her hair back from her forehead, kissed her cheek, and whispered, "You're the one I owe now." Because love for a brother may come from gratitude, but love for a child, that comes from the marrow, from the very center of the soul. And if it came down to choosing, I knew which love would have to win. Morning sunlight slanted through the blinds, but it felt dim inside my chest. Emma sat across from me at the kitchen table, stirring her cereal long after it had grown soggy. She wouldn't look at me. The silence between us was a wall, high and unyielding. Jack came downstairs whistling, as if the night before had never happened. He poured himself coffee, added sugar with the easy grace of a man who believed the world would bend to him. He glanced at Emma, winked, and said, "Sleep well, kiddo." She gave him a faint smile, the kind that wasn't quite a smile at all, and my stomach twisted. The thread between them was still there, fragile but unbroken, and I knew I couldn't simply cut it with warnings and stern words. Jack's charm had always been his deadliest weapon, smooth, casual, convincing. If I tried to pull Emma away by force, she might only cling to him tighter. So I said nothing. I let the morning play out, let him tell his little stories about business opportunities and easy money. But inside, I was making a choice. I would not let my daughter be drawn further into his schemes. I would not sit by and pray it would all work out. I needed proof, something undeniable, something that could tear the mask off my brother and reveal the truth. That afternoon, while Jack stepped out for what he called an errand, I slipped into his room. It was the same room he had once shared with me as children, back when we whispered secrets into the dark and promised we'd always protect each other. Now it smelled faintly of tobacco and cologne, and the sight of his duffel bag on the floor made my pulse quicken. I knelt beside it and unzipped the bag. Inside were wads of cash bound with rubber bands, receipts scribbled with cryptic notes, and 3 cell phones, each with different case colors. My breath caught in my throat. This wasn't petty work. This was organized. I snapped pictures quickly with my own phone, my hands trembling as though I were holding contraband explosives. Every detail mattered: the numbers on the bills, the names scribbled on receipts, even the scratched screen on one of the burner phones. Then I heard it, the sound of a car pulling into the driveway. Jack, my heart lurched. I shoved everything back into the duffel, zipped it up, and slipped out of the room just as the front door opened. "Where have you been?" I asked casually from the hallway. He shrugged, dropped a paper bag of groceries on the counter. "Picked up dinner. Thought I'd give you a break." The smile he gave me was disarming, the same smile that had charmed teachers and neighbors when we were children. But I no longer saw the boy behind it. I saw the man who had just nearly caught me rifling through his secrets. That evening, when Emma left her phone unattended on the couch, I picked it up. My hands shook, not from guilt but from dread. I scrolled through her messages, and there it was, the same coded language I had overheard. Times, numbers, drops, confirmations, and her replies obedient, efficient. My daughter wasn't just being lured, she was already inside the circle. I sat on the porch after dark, phone heavy in my palm, photographs saved in my gallery like silent witnesses. I thought about calling the police right then. But the thought of Jack behind bars again, and Emma dragged through an investigation, stopped me cold. I couldn't destroy them both in one strike. I needed someone I could trust, someone who would believe me without judgment. So I dialed a number I hadn't called in years, Detective Harris, an old friend of my late husband, a man who had once bounced Emma on his knee and promised me, after the funeral, that if I ever needed help, he'd be there. He answered on the second ring. "It's been a while," he said, his voice rough with age. "I need you," I whispered. "It's Jack. He's pulling Emma into something dangerous. I have proof, but I don't know how to use it. I don't want her hurt." There was a pause, then the steady reply: "Bring me everything you've got, and don't confront him again, not yet. Let's make sure he traps himself." I hung up, the weight in my chest shifting from fear to resolve. For the first time since Jack had walked out of that prison door, I felt a flicker of power. Not safety yet, not peace, but the first step toward taking my daughter back. Inside the house, I heard Jack's laughter drifting from the living room, mingling with Emma's softer giggles. To anyone else, it would sound like family. But to me, it was the sound of a rope tightening, pulling her further into his world. I touched the phone in my pocket, the photograph safe inside, and whispered to myself, "Not my child, not her, not ever." The days that followed felt like walking a tightrope over open air. Every step was calculated, every word measured. I couldn't let Jack know I had seen into his secrets, couldn't let Emma suspect I was building something behind the curtain. I cooked dinners, folded laundry, laughed at the right moments, like an actress in a play where the stakes were life itself. Detective Harris met me at a quiet diner on the edge of town. He looked older than I remembered, lines etched deeper around his mouth, hair turned silver, but his eyes were the same, steady, sharp, unwilling to be fooled. I slid my phone across the booth, letting him swipe through the photographs I had taken. "Cash bundles, burners, codes. He's knee-deep and your daughter's tied to it," Harris muttered. He tapped the screen, his jaw tightening. "You were right to call me." I gripped my coffee mug, the ceramic warm against my trembling fingers. I don't care about Jack anymore. I just need Emma out, safe, whatever it takes. He nodded slowly. Then we do this smart. We set the table, let him serve himself. But it has to be clean, airtight. Otherwise he slips free and she stays tangled. That night, back at the house, Jack was more animated than usual. He paced the living room, phone in hand, speaking in half-sentences, coded words that made Emma giggle nervously. She tried to mask it as excitement, but I could see the tension in her shoulders. She was in deeper now, maybe deeper than even she understood. When he hung up, he clapped his hands together. Big night tomorrow, one simple run and we're clear. Easy money. Emma, you're ready, right? She nodded too quickly. Yeah, Uncle Jack, I'm ready. I forced my face into stillness, though inside my chest something screamed. Tomorrow, it had to be tomorrow. I texted Harris in the kitchen, fingers trembling over the screen. He's making a move tomorrow night. Emma's involved. The reply came fast, we'll be there, just keep her close. Don't let him smell doubt. I barely slept. The house creaked and shifted around me, the old wood settling like restless bones. Each sound jolted me upright, my mind sketching out every possible disaster. What if they came too late? What if Emma was caught in the middle? What if Jack figured me out before the trap was ready? Morning came dull and heavy. At breakfast, Emma avoided my eyes, pushing eggs around her plate. Jack, on the other hand, was jubilant, humming the way he always did when he thought he was untouchable. He wore his best shirt, the one with crisp lines, as though the night ahead was something to celebrate. As the day dragged on, I caught glimpses of Emma slipping into the bathroom with her phone, her voice low, rehearsing the codes like lines in a play. Each time, my stomach knotted tighter. By dusk, the air outside had cooled, the sky painted with the bruised colors of twilight. Jack tossed the keys to his truck in the air, catching them with a grin. All right, kiddo, showtime. Emma grabbed her backpack, slinging it over her shoulder like a soldier marching into battle. For a moment, her eyes flicked to mine and I saw something there, hesitation, fear, maybe even a silent plea. But then Jack's hand landed on her shoulder, steering her forward, and the moment was gone. I followed them out, pretending nonchalance, though my knees felt weak beneath me. The lot where they were headed was only a few blocks away, a patch of cracked asphalt behind a shuttered warehouse. The perfect place for shadows to swallow people whole. As we approached, the faint glow of headlights already lit the far edge. A car idled there, faceless behind tinted glass. Jack's grin widened. Right on time. Emma clutched the straps of her bag tighter. I wanted to run to her to drag her back, but Harris's words echoed in my mind. Let him serve himself. And then, just as Jack stepped forward, the night exploded with red and blue. Sirens wailed, doors slammed. Voices thundered, police, hands where we can see them. Emma screamed, dropping the backpack. Jack froze, his grin collapsing into shock, then rage. His eyes darted to me, betrayal blazing in them as though he had already guessed who had set the trap. Don't move, Jack, Harris barked from the shadows, his badge glinting under the flashing lights. For a moment, my brother stood suspended between fight and flight, his chest heaving. Then, slowly, he raised his hands. Emma collapsed against me, sobbing into my coat. Mom, what's happening? What did you do? I held her close, my own tears hot against my cheeks. What I had to save you. And as Jack was shoved against the hood of his truck, cuffs snapping around his wrists, his gaze locked on mine. Not pleading, not apologizing, accusing. As if I had broken some sacred vow that bound us. But vows don't outweigh children. Debts don't outweigh daughters. The trap had closed, and nothing in our family would ever be the same. The flashing lights faded, but the echo of sirens lingered long after the police cars disappeared down the street. The lot fell quiet, only the sound of Emma's ragged breathing against my chest. Her tears soaked through my coat, each sob a blade carving guilt deeper into me. Why, Mom? She whispered, her voice raw. Why would you do that to him? I closed my eyes, the weight of her question heavier than any chain. Because he was pulling you into something that would have destroyed you, I couldn't stand by and watch. She pushed away from me, her face streaked with tears and fury. You don't understand. Uncle Jack, he believed in me. He said I was smart, that I could help. You just want me stuck at home, safe and small. Her words struck deep. She didn't see the danger. She only saw the thrill, the illusion of independence he had painted for her. To Emma, Jack wasn't a criminal. He was a doorway into being noticed, being trusted, being special. I knelt down, gripping her shoulders, forcing her to meet my eyes. He wasn't giving you a future, Emma. He was stealing it. Every code, every errand, every dollar, those weren't gifts. They were chains. He was using you the way he's used everyone in his life. Her lip trembled. But he saved you once. You told me the story. You owe him. The truth landed like a stone in my stomach. Yes, I owed him. I owed him my life. But debts to the past can't outweigh promises to the future. I do owe him, I said quietly. And I paid that debt the day I signed my name on his bail. But Emma, listen to me, you are my daughter. My one and only. Whatever I owe the world, it will never cost me you. Her eyes flickered, confusion wrestling with hurt. She pulled away again, hugging herself as though she could hold her heart together with her arms. That night, back at the house, the silence was unbearable. Emma shut herself in her room, the click of the lock loud as thunder. I sat alone at the kitchen table, the same table where Jack had told his jokes, where Emma had laughed too freely. Now, only shadows sat with me. My phone buzzed. A message from Detective Harris. He's booked. Charges stick. Sleep tonight, you did the right thing. The right thing. 2 words that felt like hollow comfort when your child won't even look at you. I walked to Emma's door and knocked gently. Sweetheart, can we talk? Her reply was muffled, sharp. Not tonight, please. I pressed my forehead against the wood, fighting back tears. I love you, I whispered. That's all I know how to say. No answer came, just silence. As the hours passed, I thought about Jack in a holding cell, pacing like a caged animal, his eyes burning with betrayal. I thought about Emma in her room, curled beneath her blanket, replaying his words in her mind, maybe still believing he had offered her something more than I ever could. I was losing them both, the brother who had once saved me, and the daughter I was trying to save now. But as the clock ticked past midnight, a quiet resolve rose in me. This wasn't the end. Not for Emma, not for me. Trust broken could be rebuilt. Hearts wounded could heal. Family, I reminded myself, wasn't about never falling. It was about standing back up, even when everything is shattered. Tomorrow, I would find the words to reach her. Tomorrow, I would help her see the truth, even if it took every last breath I had. Because debts may bind us, but love, the stubborn, unyielding love of a mother, outlasts them all. The trial came swiftly. Jack stood in a courtroom where the walls seemed to echo every poor choice he had ever made. The evidence was undeniable: cash, coded messages, burner phones, and most damning of all, the testimony of those he had dragged into his schemes. When the sentence was read, his eyes never once turned to me. Perhaps he could not bear to see the sister who had both saved him and betrayed him in the same lifetime. Emma sat beside me that day. Her hands trembled, but she didn't pull away when I reached for them. The weeks leading up to the trial had been heavy with silence and anger, but little by little, the truth had started to seep through. She saw the messages for herself, heard the recordings Detective Harris had shared, and realized that her uncle's world was never built for her. It was built on using her. One night, long after the house had gone quiet, she slipped into the kitchen where I sat with a cold cup of tea. She wrapped her arms around me, resting her head against my shoulder, and whispered through tears, "I'm sorry, Mom. I didn't see it. I wanted to believe in him." I held her close, my own tears finally breaking free. We both wanted to believe. That's what makes family so dangerous, Emma. We see what we hope for, not what is. From then on, the healing began, not overnight, not without stumbles, but with the slow, steady rhythm of trust being rebuilt. Emma went back to school. She laughed again, not the nervous giggle Jack had coaxed from her, but the genuine laughter of a girl discovering her own strength. And me, I learned that owing someone your life doesn't mean you owe them your soul. Jack had once saved me, but the greater truth was this: I had saved my daughter. And that was the debt I could live with. Now, when I sit at that kitchen table, I no longer see only shadows. I see light spilling in through the blinds, warming the wood where we share our meals, our conversations, our new beginnings. The house is quieter, yes, but it is honest. And honesty, I've learned, is the soil where real love grows. Family is complicated. It is love, it is pain, it is sacrifice. But at its best, it is also forgiveness and hope. And while my brother's story ended in chains, mine continues, standing beside my daughter, walking toward a future we will build together, no matter how broken the past may be. Thank you for listening to our story. If this touched you, if it reminded you of the power of family and the strength of a mother's love, please remember to subscribe to the channel, share your thoughts in the comments, and let your own voice be heard. From my family to yours, I wish you health, peace, and happiness. May your homes be filled with honesty, with love that heals, and with the kind of strength that carries us through even the darkest nights. Take care, and until next time, cherish the people who truly stand by you.